Okay, we're live. Hi, everyone. Hello, our watchers in the interwebs. Welcome to the interwebs with the Professor. So, hello, everyone on Facebook. Hello, everyone on YouTube, and hello, everyone on Twitter. So before we start, I want to make a really interesting observation. So the last time Dr. T launched her first book, which was in August, a few days before she launched her book, Toni Morrison had passed away. And we were speaking about Toni Morrison and how when Toni Morrison was visiting Harvard University, one of the people asked her and said, "What brings you joy?" Right? And then she said, "You expect me to say reading, but I will say you that sex gives me joy." But what's also really special about this evening is that today is Toni Morrison's birthday, as well as Audre Lorde's birthday. So it just feels like the stars are aligning, right? One, when we had the initial launch, it was Toni Morrison had passed away. And today we are having a celebration of the paperback. And Toni Morrison, it's her birthday, as well as my fave, Audre Lorde. So happy birthday to Toni Morrison and happy birthday to Audre Lorde. So in many ways, it's ordained.
That's amazing. Did you know when you picked this date? I mean, I had no idea.
I did.
Man. Wait, when you are dependable. You are that person in my life.
So everyone, welcome from wherever you're watching. Please know that this is a live interaction. So you're allowed to make comments, ask questions. This is really a space and an opportunity for you to make comments and, yeah. So, I mean, rona mo Chickenators, re rata go bala di-bio tsa batho, right? So I will give my esteemed CEO of the Chickenators the opportunity just to read the bio of our guest this evening.
Guys, we're taking this bio is so heavy. It is so strong, ne? I'm going to give you just the summarized version because we could be here all day reading Dr. Tlaleng's bio. Like in Aksasa, we could still be reading it, So I'm going to read what it says at the back of her new updated edition with new content, best-selling, okay? Guide to Sexual Pleasure and Health. Hey, levels in China, there are levels to this thing. Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, MBCHB, y'all better put some respect on Dr. Tlaleng's name, is the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the rights of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, a medical doctor at Disa Clinic in Johannesburg with a focus on sexual and reproductive health and rights, as well as a senior lecturer and broadcaster and a multi-printed, best-selling, updated
all this best-selling thing, like yo, Bona. It's like it brings.
But are we lying? Are we lying, Dr. T? Are we lying? No, you are a bestseller.
10,000 copies. 10,000 in a year and a half.
Multiple reprints. During a pandemic. Y'all better put some respect on Dr. T's name.
Really, really grateful.
So before we start, because it's the updated edition with new content, what we certainly would like to do is for you to read to us on the updated content, right? And what is really juicy for me, because so I would like you to read from the epilogue, Sex and Pleasure During the Time of COVID. I think it's still relevant because we're still under the pandemic. So just for us to, get a little bit of a sense of what is happening. It's going to be on page 251. That's the start of it. But I would like you to read from the bottom of 252. So the sentence starts, evidence at the time indicated.
Okay. And then like because
Yeah.
you know I'm a senior lecturer now, so I can really read.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Evidence at the time indicated that the virus was not being passed on through vaginal or anal intercourse. When the president announced that there would be no kissing allowed, we all laughed. But the truth is, despite hearing that, most people couldn't reconcile not being able to kiss their partners. And those with a higher risk of becoming infected, such as many essential services workers, were sharing their anxieties and confusion. And I too had moments of doubt and had to discuss with my partner what my occupational risk meant for us as a couple and physical intimacy in general. Because of the significant risk of passing on the virus through kissing and physical touching, avoidance of those activities became something we all had to accept. While it is important to validate other forms of sex, such as oral sex and dry humping, this is difficult because there is evidence that the virus is present in fecal matter, which means oral sex around the anal area, also known as rimming, may place a person at risk of passing on the virus. This leaves few options, but a toss-up between your health and the risk of contracting COVID-19 versus pleasure makes the choice bearable, but not always easy. For regular sexual partners living in the same house who are both asymptomatic, the risk of transmission is far lower. If one partner experiences occupational exposure to the virus, depending on the use of protective personal equipment, it is important to discuss with your healthcare provider any concerns you might have in terms of exposing your partner to the virus. If your sexual partner or partners do display any symptoms of the virus after exposure, it is advisable to avoid all close physical contact and physical intimacy, such as kissing, hugging, cuddling, as well as anal, vaginal, or oral sex. Self-pleasure and self-play carry no risk of contracting COVID-19, and they are a good outlet if you are experiencing anxiety and are the best ways to still enjoy some form of sexual pleasure during the pandemic. You can also explore ways of incorporating technology, such as a phone or a webcam, into your sex life to be able to share with consent and only with those you trust.
Thank you very much.
Self-pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So I suppose today is really mainly about like joy and celebration, right? So this is an opportunity for you to really ask questions that you've always wanted to ask, to really dig deep and go like deep down dirty. Like we're giving you the opportunity to do that. Like just ask whatever you want to ask. But I suppose the first question to ask is this, Dr. T. So your book has been around for just more than a year, and we are interested in what that has meant for you to have this book out. And you've really received some really wonderful feedback from a variety of readers, right? Older readers, younger readers, parents. And what has that meant for you as a doctor who advocates for sexual and reproductive health, to have this book, which in many ways has destigmatized the way that people look at their bodies and how they are now able to interact with their own medical doctors?
You know, when I wrote this book, I had to wait for a time where I could firstly be vulnerable, because I thought there were parts of the book and parts of sex and sexual pleasure that, you know, we grow up, you know, being disciplined or being indoctrinated in certain ways. And there's some unlearning that I had to do, right? And also some learning that I had to do. And so by the time I wrote the book, I was already at peace with what the book can do, should do, or will do. And so I completely let go of any expectations once I submitted the manuscript And my whole thing, and it's always like that, it doesn't matter what I do. If I can help one person, that's enough. So if 10, 20, 30, more than 10,000 people buy the book and they find that it's useful and enjoyable, that's beyond my wildest dreams even, you know. And one of the memories that stand out for me is, you know, being in Bloemfontein with you, in fact, and a 13-year-old boy walking up to me for me to sign his book because it was his birthday that week. And his father had gifted him the book with such a beautiful letter that he had written for him. All the way up to policymakers like Mewini Bianyima, who's the executive director of UNAIDS, you know, who has read the book and who feels that the book is something that everyone, you know, should be able to have and to enjoy. And so in between the 13-year-old and all the way up to policymakers and experts in the field, there are lots of joyful moments, lots of laughter. And if people that look like me, that sound like me, can for once look at their vaginas and feel joy and be at peace, I've done my job. And I can tell you right now, there's more than a handful of women who are now comfortable with who they are, with who they thought they were. And of course, we live in a country where many of us, a lot is taken away from us, right? From our person in terms of the types of violence we experience. And after reading this book, a lot of people find that they're able to either take that first step of healing, or through reading the book, they're able to go to their doctor or their therapist and actually ask better questions and be more involved in a partnership as they're getting their care.
So you've gone back into clinical practice, which is really interesting. In the middle of a pandemic, Dr. T has gone back into clinical practice. And I want to know what influenced, or in what ways writing this book influenced your decision to do that.
It was so important that I myself, firstly, accept that I always choose the most difficult path in life. That is just something that Dr. T does. So during a pandemic, I decided that this is the perfect time to go back to being an essential services worker. And I think it stems from the seriousness in which I take my oath of being a medical doctor and being of service to people. But also, I had a lot of people asking me for consultations. Please come back, please come back. And so in the same way, which is a funny thing, is that the same way people are asking me to please put your radio shows and put your TV shows in a book so we could share it, it's the same people now who are saying, okay, thanks for the book, but now we need you back. Come back and take care of us. And my clinical practice is really focused on sexual and reproductive health care. I'm a general practitioner who has that focus. I've chosen to only work with that. Our clinic, I always say, it's more like an open clinic, like we have an open church or an open house. People come in and out, various needs, but I am intentional about ensuring that we have, we provide gender affirming healthcare, that we assist people with their legal documents for changing their names or their gender markers, that we do antenatal care, as well as, in fact, all other options of early pregnancy, such as abortions as well. I'm very proud to say I'm an abortion provider because I know what that does in terms of assisting people who are pregnant have a chance in life when they've decided that a pregnancy is unsupportable for whatever reason. And it's not always that it's unwanted. Many of the abortions are from pregnancies that are wanted, but life really happens and it's hard. And people make these decisions. So my aim is to give people dignified care in a manner that's affirming for them. And I see myself, even in my clinical practice, as a human rights defender. So how I practice medicine is in itself part of a human rights promotion and protection.
I mean, and having go Cliffy.
I suspect we may have the same question. So What's also been really interesting is that not only have you decided to go back into clinical practice in a time of COVID, right? What you've also done, which is an extraordinary achievement, is you've also been appointed as a United Nations Special Rapporteur for the Right to Health, right? And this is also during a pandemic. So your sort of role during this time is a little bit more complicated than the people before you, right? Because they didn't need to deal with a pandemic, and they were able to do the work of special rapporteur freely because there wasn't any travel restrictions, right? So I suppose the question is twofold. What does it mean for Ngwana Kwakwa to be a special rapporteur, right? And what does it mean to be a special rapporteur during this time, especially?
Wow, I mean that's a big one. Even I get me emotional, but you know, it doesn't matter where I go. I'm not ashamed to tell people that I am from Kwakwa, because that place, in terms of its geographical position, defines so much of my history as a young Black woman, but also it locates me within a particular moment in time, and it's explicit about the type of violence that some of us grew up in living in a Bantustan, right? And looking now with everything that I've achieved, and me knowing in the heart of hearts that I'm not here because I'm the smartest or the most hardworking. I'm here because of a series of miracles that were perfectly aligned along the way. And I know that luck is not enough for people like me to make it in life. Luck is not enough. And if it was about hard work, all the Black women on earth would be billionaires because we work the hardest. We show up the most for everybody all the time. And so I asked myself a question: what is it now in this next phase of my career that I can do that can literally work at changing the structural oppressions, right? That can look at the determinants of health and talk about health beyond just being well and being able to go to a clinic and being treated, but understanding holistically what the right to health means, what the state obligations are, what the responsibilities are. And like I say, I see my clinical, work as part of that work of human rights. And that's why initially I left the consultation room, funny enough, right? Because I found that the individual consultations and the individual advocacy one-on-one with the patient wasn't working. And so I went into the politics of health and the global health space. And so the UN Special Rapporteur gives me an opportunity to do this work globally, to highlight and amplify best practice, and to also focus on sexual and reproductive health rights as an integral part of the right to health, because the previous special rapporteurs before me were not having a focus on SRHR. And I believe that many of the problems that happen to us as Black women, as Black children, as Black people who are gender not conforming and gender diverse, is that when the system lets us down in terms of our sexual and reproductive rights and health, many of us don't recover. I had many friends who could have been in the position that I'm at, but they didn't have an access to a safe abortion. They never had access, and they never had the luck of having a caregiver like a mother who could tell them about their body and menstruation and honestly about how babies are made, so they can make decisions to delay their sexual debut. So there's a lot about why I do what I do. And I'm bringing this to the global space, to the UN space, which is quite bureaucratic and is not an easy space. But it is important for us to be there, because a lot of their programs at the UN, we are the beneficiaries. And when I say we, I mean we in Africa, right? We are still seen as beneficiaries of aid. We are not seen as leaders. We are not seen as partners. And so my role is to highlight the fact that not only do we lead, we are partners, and we can do this, and we are more than just recipients of health aid.
I mean, I'm really curious about, the idea of being an apolitical doctor is always very interesting to me. And I think it's something that our colleagues almost love to speak about, the idea that they don't involve themselves in politics and they're neutral. And I don't think that that's actually possible, and I don't think that our patients at all. And I am really curious about the ways in which, now having navigated global politics, right? So we often speak about systems, this system, and all of these things. But I really want to know about how understanding global politics as it relates to sexual and reproductive health, has really changed your personal politics, but also your authorship. So how has it changed how you think and write about sexual reproductive health?
It's it's so interesting. I'm laughing because I'm currently in the middle of drafting my Human Rights Council report. It's the first one that I'm doing for the Human Rights Council. And the thread that binds all of the work that I do and the different themes around SRHR, whether it's digital intervention, whether it's access to safe abortion, whether it's sex worker rights and their access to SRHR services, whether it's adolescent care, all of that, the thread that binds my work currently, it's about democratization, decolonization of global health architecture, as well as looking at anti-racism work and being intentional about the types of solutions we come up with. And mine is to advise and push for the UN to adopt more intersectional frameworks in their programming, in their policies, in their resolutions. And I would have really succeeded if, when you read my reports, when you read my work, you can see that thread of decolonization, democratization, anti-racism. It's important because there is no such a thing as neutrality. The fact that I was born in Kwakwa and I was raised in Kwakwa and I went to the schools that I did, and even today, when I'm in an aeroplane and the pilot asks, is there a doctor on flight because there's an emergency, people don't believe that I'm the person who possesses the intellect and the skill, and I'm a doctor who can actually intervene. Transatlantic flight, people would risk having someone die than to believe that this person that looks like me, that sounds like me, could be that doctor and possess those skills. So my life is already political. The difference is some of us do something about it and some of us don't. But it's a lie to say that medicine is apolitical. I couldn't be an obstetrician because, as much as I love SRHR, because of Marion Sims. He is deemed to be the father of modern gynecology, which is a ridiculous thing, right? His statue was removed from Central Park in New York only a few years ago. And that man used to perfect his stitches and his surgery in the pelvic area to fix fistulas on Black slaves, women without anesthesia. And he would repeat that surgery and that stitching and that surgical technique to try and perfect it more than once, 2, 3, 4, 5 times on one person. And this belief that Black women don't feel pain. So when you are a gynecologist and you are fixing a fistula using the Sims technique, you must understand that your work is political. That man perfected that technique using women unethically, without consent, without anesthesia, right? So sorry, folks, your job is already political. The fact that the syphilis experiments happened, the fact that Henrietta Lacks to this day, Johns Hopkins, I do a lot of work with people at Johns Hopkins, but that institution has a history, right? Henrietta Lacks' cervical cells were stolen from her body without consent of her family or herself. And in fact, her cells they were shown to replicate rapidly in the lab, right? And then that's when scientists thought, well, we can use these cells to actually develop and do health research and development of vaccines of the health industry in general. And it's her cervical cells that today people are using to be able to test and do human testing in the labs. So we have Black women who gave up their bodies literally for medicine. So there's no way you can be a medical practitioner and say that your job is apolitical. There's no such a thing. It's just that you choose to do nothing about the fact that all these politics are happening. I'll give you a perfect example, and I'm sorry I'm going on too much, but the reason why Black women die more of cervical cancer in this country, it's not because they don't know that they have to do pap smears. They go for their pap smears, but many of them don't come back for their results. You know why? Many doctors are just happy to say, Black people just don't come. Black women don't care about their health. They are uneducated. But no one stops to think, do these women have jobs and labor protection in their jobs? Do these women have leave to take for themselves? Or are they using up their own sick leave to take care of their children, their in-laws, and their extended families, that by the time they need to come back for their own results, they basically can't because they will be out of work, right? This is why we need to be political in how we look at things. The context of illness is important. The context of your patient is important. And you cannot just accept that it's okay that Black women are just reckless. It's the same way they talk about us when they talk about STIs, you know?
And I think that it's so interesting that you've said the example of the pap smear, right? Because I mean, I was having a conversation with my friend. We're both doctors, and there was a period where we just had a horrible experience with our gynecologists who were male, and then we didn't go back for pap smears for 2 years, right? And people underestimate what that kind of trauma does when your whole body's already a site of trauma, right? So you walk down the street and you have someone want to potentially assault you, harass you, etc. So your body is constantly a site of trauma, and then you go into a medical space and somebody wants to further traumatize you. And I think that we also don't have those conversations about how we're just even inhumane in the way that we treat Black women, even in those kind of spaces. So at your vulnerable, you're in my philosophy position, somebody is doing a pap smear on you, and they decide that they don't have to be gentle, that they don't have to be careful, that they don't have to think about what they're doing to you. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that's come out of this book and this rise of Black sexual health practitioners who are so conscious and aware of the spaces in which our patients operate in, right? Because that is the difference between your patient regularly coming for a pap smear and just deciding, that's okay, actually. I'll come back when I really feel like there's something wrong, right? Because we continuously traumatize Black people in these spaces.
Even the structure of a clinic, you know, how it's built, everything about that space is not meant for you, you know. But yeah, there's a lot we can talk about medicine and colonization.
So I'm going to sort of lighten the mood. Bongani on YouTube asks, Clofessa, what brings you joy?
Clofessa. What brings me joy? You know what brings me joy currently is that I have a son who started grade 1 yesterday. That is the most joyful thing, and it's a joy that no one can explain. It's like I like this human was inside of me, and now he's in big school, and it's like, oh, it's right now. That's really what just brings me joy. It's getting those regular updates from my mom about all of the funny things that they're doing. Like today, they were busy wearing plastic bags and saying, oh, my mom is in Joburg, I don't have clothes, you know, like messing about. And so she sent me the photos, then he was doing his homework, and it's just beautiful. And right now, that's really what just brings me joy. It's knowing that the people that I love are warm and comfortable. And I think that's also in the same breath, you know, what keeps me fueled to do the work that I do is because I know that we all deserve a certain amount of just joy that every day, you know, there's things that you shouldn't be worried about. But yeah, that's really just what brings me joy. It's Bukosi Benvelo.
So Professor Alna is joining us on Facebook, and she says, congratulations.
Thank
Here
you.
Is another question from Bongani on YouTube. How do you help people navigate the moral stigma of abortion that creates a tension between agency and the right to life?
That's a good one. I mean, and it's layered, right? It's not a difficult one. It's just that it's layered. So there's this stigma around the societal stigma, right? And I often think about it, if you think of a big circle, right, and an inner circle. So the outer circle is the society, all of the things that you again, like Bongani says, we have to navigate and all of that. And sometimes the societal pressure, whether it's religion, it's culture, whatever it is, can be so intense on you that you never make it to the small bubble to actually come and ask for help with your practitioner. And what concerns me, right, as a doctor, firstly, it's that inner circle. It's that individual consultation that I'm having with my patient, because she is alive and she's saying to me, for whatever reason, in accordance with our law, remember in South Africa, abortion is legal, right? So you can have whatever feelings you have about it, they are yours, keep them, but you can't obstruct anyone from getting an abortion. So when they're in that room with me and I'm looking at this person who's pregnant and they say, Dr. T, I need your help. I need an abortion. I can't carry this pregnancy to term. My job as a doctor, my job and my responsibility is to this life in front of me, not a hypothetical life that's going to be born in 9 months' time. I've got a life already in front of me that has agency, that is making a choice. And my responsibility is that it's to that person. And it's not uncommon to have the outer ring, the societal pressure, the cultural pressure, the internalized hate that even women have, right? The internalized judgment and the self-loathing that by the time you come and see me, you've already judged yourself. And then you get so surprised that I'm not judging you, right? And then it's like, why are you not shouting at me? Why are you not shocked? I'm like, but why am I shocked? I went to medical school to take a medical history, to learn how to examine you, to learn how to do these procedures. Shock and horror does not come in anyway in my clinical assessment and my interaction with my patient. And the life that I'm worried about, it's the one that's in front of me right now, not a hypothetical one that's coming in 9 months' time. This one right here, this woman, is the one that I'm worried about. And she has agency and she has all the rights in our constitution as well as our act to make that decision.
So there's a comment from on Facebook, Dr. T, my inspiration. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's affirming.
I think that what you just said, Dr. T, is so important. I think we can't just, brush over the question around the moral stigma of abortion, because I think that it's always particularly a particular patient population who gets judged and stigmatized for seeking abortion, right? So it's the same people who, lo and behold, they have this baby, would be the same people who get judged and who are unsupported. And so we also need to have a conversation about the ways in which our society just does not support young mothers, right? So these are the same people who will stigmatize you for having an abortion, but will provide you with no support at all as a young mother. And I think that women's bodies, particularly Black women's bodies, are always so interesting for the ways in which people always want to exert themselves on us, right? So be it a moral stigma that only exists around us having abortions, or decisions around sexual reproductive health and the desire or the ways in which we seek help, right? So we're the ones who will go to a clinic and you will get shouted at by the nurse because you are 17 and how dare you be asking for birth control. Then you don't get birth control and now you are 18 and you want to have an abortion. Then you don't get access to an abortion and you have a baby and then you get judged for being a young mother. And it's like this continuous cycle, right? And I think that this is why the work that you do is so important and is so affirming, because we see it in action every single day, just in the lives of the people around us.
But you know what's also fascinating for me? What's fascinating for me is that often the people who stigmatize you are the same people who, as you've mentioned, will not be supportive, right? So you think about these men, right, who are constantly like, intwana I am, right? But then you carry the pregnancy to term, and these are the same people who you have to go to maintenance court for. You have to like either drag them on social media or do particular things. So it's interesting that only the person who's pregnant and who will give birth to the baby must be held accountable for those decisions. But as soon as they decide that they want to terminate that pregnancy, then all of a sudden, it's everyone's problem. It's everyone's problem. I mean, we think about the really horrendous interview that you had a couple of years ago, right? Where literally someone said to you, what about the Black nation, right? What about the Black nation? And I constantly return to that because I think about like how the child is made between two people, but the one party can always tap out, right?
And they do tap out.
But as soon as you say, I don't want to carry this pregnancy to term, you're hidden, you're killing alive, you're doing this, but nobody's ever talking about like, what support structures are we creating for these people who are pregnant and who want to carry their children to term?
And in fact, there's good research that's been done at the university currently known as Rhodes. It's still currently known as Rhodes. I don't know for how long it's going to be. I mean, honestly, that's another talk. But in any case, that university. And one of the great things that's coming through there is around the languaging around abortion, right? And how language itself can be stigmatizing. We know this for a fact. But the reason why I call abortions unsupportable. It's precisely for those reasons that you guys speak about. Because the next question is, what would make this pregnancy supportable? Because if you say it's unwanted, it's easy to just judge people. If you say, well, it was a one-night stand, then everyone judges you. But if you say, okay, fine, this pregnancy is unsupportable, then the society must ask itself, what do we need to create as a society to make whatever pregnancy exists to be supportable? And in fact, get out of my uterus while you are there.
Facts. Get out of my uterus.
We suffer enough with multiple fibroids, with endometriosis, with dysmenorrhea, hectic period pains. You know what? I think we could even trade if we could. But since we can't, get out. Get out.
Right. I'm going to read the next question. I think I want to get that on a t-shirt because I'm now 30 and still childless. And wow, the questions I'm fielding. Oh, people are within my uterus. They are just within located. Just seated.
Womanhood, Akir. You must prove why that man put the ring on your finger. We must see that you.
Because we need our to return.
Womanhood, right? For Black women, we are not allowed to express ourselves in our fullness. We live the scripted lives from the days we are born. Even when our mothers are pregnant with us, they are already being asked, when are you trying for a son? Before we are even born. So, you know what? Get out. Get out.
Get out right here. Get out right here. We need Amahloni to come back, guys. Like, you know, before you ask someone about their uterus, can Amahloni just catch you? Can they just catch you? And
1 teaspoon.
Just a teaspoon. We've got a question here from Lorna who says, how do you recharge your energy and find the will to keep going, especially in a space where you're constantly fighting for women to get access to what is rightfully theirs? What a powerful question.
That's a good one. So I've learned over the years to be more, to take time out without feeling guilty. Because I used to take time out, but there was always that guilt. Yeah, oh no, if I'm not there, what's going to happen? And then you just realize that, you know what? I'm not God. Mine is not to save anybody, right? And when you release yourself from that, you are able to really just recharge and do the best that you can where you are at. So I've been really more intentional over the last maybe about 3 years of just relaxing and having fun. So you'll see me in my costume in a pool and I'll be relaxed and, you know, I feel shameless for enjoying myself and my body because I know that this work this work needs longevity, right? But the systems that we are actually trying to dismantle, right, are designed in such a way that they break us. So by me taking time out, and I always draw from Audre Lorde all the time, by me taking time out to recharge, to refuel, to refocus, to rejuvenate, it actually makes me more powerful because there's a certain clarity that you get when you are rested, when you take stock of things and say, okay, so I've been fighting for abortion rights in South Africa. We are now at a stage where you can have the national broadcaster talk about penises and vagina 7 o'clock in the morning. Darling, that never used to be the case. Okay, those are the types of things won't go on a CV, but it's the truth. So you look back and think, actually, you know what? I did that. And so I get joy from also people giving me feedback. I have a lot of women who constantly write to me to tell me in the different ways that I have impacted their lives through the book and also just through living my own life, you know. And I think that's what's really amazing. It's actually knowing that this work is received, because there's also a very self-centeredness, right, that can come with activism. And so when I still get that feedback from people, from women, particularly Black women, I know that I'm on the right track. And they are the ones that honestly and truly give me the energy to keep going, because I know that this is not just for me. It's for people who are yet to come, and they will reap the benefits. And I'm living that feminist future right now. That's why we get backlash, right? Because we are living the dream, and how dare we be so liberated? How dare we walk around in costumes in these bodies? How dare we post on Instagram that we are experiencing joy? Because again, the definition of Blackness is this constant struggle. So even when you are not struggling, you have to be in this performative space just so that you can prove that you still, and I'm like, my life doesn't have to be defined by struggle. When I'm struggling, I'm really going to be fighting and no one's going to ask. But when it's time to relax and just breathe, that's what I'm doing. Just breathe. So I play hard and I work hard, and I don't seek balance ever, but I'm just present. Wherever I am, I'm present. So presence is a big thing for me as well.
We've got another question here that says, post-abortion, what support is available for Black women overwhelmed by backlash for choosing to do so?
So first, it's important to understand that any medical procedure or any medical consultation should always be confidential and done in privacy, right? And as much as we talk about abortion and we try to exceptionalize abortion, but there's no difference in terms of the clinical care and the steps I have to follow as a doctor for assisting someone with an abortion procedure, doing a vasectomy, amputating a leg for diabetic foot. It's about consent. It's about giving people information. It's about letting them know what's going to happen in the process, allowing them to ask questions where they have a lot of questions. With abortion, we are fixing a lot of myths, right, and misconceptions, and about the effects on abortion on your fertility, for example, or causing cancer. So a lot of the counseling before is for that purpose, is to make sure that when women leave, they are not as overwhelmed as they walked in. But we don't always find that being the case. Sometimes women think a friend or a family member may be a safer space, and they tell them that, look, I had an abortion, and it turns out that that family member isn't supportive, which is why I advocate for primary healthcare clinics in every single ward in the country that's often 24 hours a day, because we know that. And also, I'm advocating for social workers and psychologists to be present on duty 24 hours a day in all of these clinics, because we do go through stuff, right? Beyond just abortion. We go through a lot of other traumas that are related to our workspace, that are related to our home life. And so in my work, I do not exceptionalize abortion at all. For me, abortion is just one other medical thing that we do. And I follow protocols as we should. And women know where to get hold of us. If they need to talk, they can come back for a follow-up. In fact, in our clinic, if you come for an abortion, you get scheduled immediately after the procedure for your follow-up appointments, and you get a regular reminder. And some will say, hey, Dr. T, I'm doing quite great. Thank you so much. I mean, the other day I had someone walk in there, and when they saw when they saw me at the clinic, they just burst out crying. They're like, oh my gosh, I came here because you made it so okay for me to come. And I feel like I'm having a second chance in life. And it was overwhelming, but it wasn't negative. So we shouldn't make every emotion about abortion because it's overwhelming, therefore it's automatically negative. Sometimes that, and not sometimes, often that feeling of relief can be quite overwhelming. Imagine getting another chance in life when you thought that was it, you were done. Because for many Black women, we don't get another chance. Alma, when you fail at work, right? They say, oh, Black women. They don't say Alma did something or Tlaleng did something, right? So we are
Black women today, please.
Yeah, we are not afforded that grace, right? And so getting that chance in life again to either go for that job, go traveling for that other interview, leave an abusive marriage can be overwhelming. But the reason why people found the abortion unsupportable in the first place is what's overwhelming. Let's not forget it. The fact that you needed one in the first place means there's other things happening in your life. And often I've referred people further on to other practitioners, whether it's psychologists, whether it's divorce lawyers, whether it's financial advisors, and it's holistic in how we care for people. And like I said, our clinic is an open clinic. You come and go as much as you need, for as long as you need. We are always here for you.
We've got a comment here from Mushishi Muhlahle Khosibabi. So they are so proud to be one of the people who once worked with you. Their daughters understand TOP very well, and they're saying, thank you so much. Keep up the good job.
Thank you. She's one of the sisters I used to work with at Joburg Jane. Hello, babes.
So the Cheeky Natives love giveaways, right? So courtesy of the professor herself, we'll be giving away 2 books tonight, which will be personally signed.
Yeah, 2 books.
What we will do as well is we will also be giving away a T-shirt that says
flourishing.
So what you need to do is simple. We want a juicy Lucy type of question, one that will all make us gasp, right? And then that's how you win. Or tell us a juicy story. Because that is what tonight is about. I think that often as Black people, we're not given a space where we are able to speak openly about things that bring us pleasure or things that may be uncomfortable. I think about moments in like sexual interaction where you were trying to do some sexual move and it just didn't quite work out, and then you laugh at yourself, like you just laugh to be like, oh my gosh, let's never try that again, right?
The headboard. There's a Kisna headboard. I want to say
I can even top it. My mother is like, and I think that the work that Dr. T does is really interesting, right? In the ways in which it empowers the people in our lives. So if you know my mom, my mother's conservative, she's very soft-spoken. Hey, guys, the other day the power goes off. Chill. I tell her, the power's gone off. She's like, yeah, this is the right moment. You can make, we call my unborn baby Sieza. Guys, I needed a moment. I was like, what did you just say? Then I thought, Dr. T said everybody has the right to sexual pleasure. This is why this woman is here telling me about Bosieza.
Go ahead, babes. And it's blessed by your mom. I mean, hello.
But I also think
why we are professors, right?
Yeah.
Because we are the experts at cloth.
Yeah.
We know our bodies. We are experts at consent. We are experts at telling our lovers what feels good, what doesn't feel good, where they must go, where they shouldn't go, deeper, faster, slower. I mean,
we're empowered, right? We're empowered. 5 years ago, my mother would have never said anything like that. So we are empowered. You were Professor Clove. Our mothers are empowered.
Thank you.
I also want us to have a conversation that decenters children or the reproductive nature from sex, right? Because I think often when people bless our sexual prowess, is they saying, no, at least Alma is, consummating in order to reproduce. But what if you just want to have sex for having sex? For the sake of pleasure. Sex is pleasurable, therefore you want to have it.
It's your human right, friend.
I was very disappointed with the Pope, right? Because there was this wonderful article that came out in the Irish News where he was talking about the pleasure of food and the pleasure of sex, and how as people we overcomplicate things, we really just take things overboard as humans. And he was just begging us to get back to the basics of just enjoying the pleasure of food. And I'm the one that loves eating. Like, I really enjoy my food. Cooking it, shopping for it, whatever it is, I enjoy food. So I completely identified. So when he said the pleasure of sex, I was like, papa, yo. We are having blessed cloth mus. And then he says, people must enjoy sex for procreation. I was like, oh, like, when you are building that thing with your lover, and then like, wow, I was like, but procreation again, a guy, like, you were coming so well, but I suppose he's the Pope, that kind of had to be there, but we have to work at it.
Yes.
Pleasure for the sake of pleasure, nothing else.
And I think the fact that we're even having conversations around pleasure is so empowering, right? Because, 5 years ago, I just cannot imagine us having those kinds of conversations with my mom. And just the fact that she can even conceptualize that means that in many ways we're moving forward, right? It means that there are conversations that even our conservative, mothers are having. And it's important because it means that there's an empowering that's taking place somewhere, somehow. And I think that progress doesn't look it doesn't look the same everywhere, but we're grateful for progress nonetheless.
And I mean, look, I wouldn't do this work if it wasn't for the Black women in my life. My mom, who was so open about sex and sexuality and her own body, right? And her own experiences. I mean, Kloki was with me in Kwaka December for home holidays, and she was describing like her experience with menopause, you know, and we were laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, hello, the sister must come because like I'm ready here, you know. But it's so fascinating and so affirming to be in a household where you have affirming older women, because most of us, when we look up to people, it's still older Black women. So when they affirm you in those ways, it really goes a long way, you know. And like my aunts who laugh out loud and who tell men to F off and who really just like own life, you know. How can I have turned out any differently, you know? So it's all their fault, and I think it's a good fault to have. Maybe the factory fault, but I'm a good factory fault.
So Malibucho on YouTube says, I just want to congratulate Professor for this enlightening offering. We need more of you.
Oh, thank you.
And then we have Lerato Moyo, also from YouTube, who asked, are there any medical merits to the traditional idea that if you have sex with a woman who has recently had an abortion, you will die?
There would be no men left, honey. Let's just say that. There would be no men left if that was the case. No issue at this stage. And a lot of my patients will often say, oh my gosh, there was an oops, we actually had sex, you know, before the 2 weeks was up. That's rubbish. Again, it's feeding stigma. So we need to get rid of that.
There is a comment from Katlejo on Facebook. It's beautiful how we've evolved in regards to speaking freely about our sexuality and the pleasures that come with communicating our preferences and our desires being met. Cloth away.
Tough.
I think also it's an interesting thing, right? I think about the evolution of language and how important it is for the evolution of language. I feel that maybe we did have things that we wanted to tell our partners 10, 15 years ago, but we just didn't have the language to say, or we also didn't feel safe, right? I think a lot about sexual intimacy and safety, right? Where like it's okay for you to say that you're uncomfortable, right? Because I feel like a lot of the time experiences and people have conversations around this about like, you know, when people are having sex at you and not with you. So babizi baja moto, right? But habaji wena, right? And to speak about that, right? Like how important, I mean, in the second chapter section of the book, you do speak about communication during sex, right? But you say something very important. You say that consent is more than just a yes or no, right? Consent is a little bit further than that. Is about what about condom use? When does sex stop? When does sex stop? And those type of things. And I just want you to speak a little bit about that, right? What do you think is it about communication that makes sex so fulfilling?
I think it's because you can truly be present in a moment and experience the joy, you know, and the pleasure on your terms. There's very few things in this world that we do that are on our terms. Like even when you are driving, when the robot goes red, you will stop. When you get to work and your boss says, deliver this thing at 12, that's what must happen. So sex for me, I find that it's such an amazing time and space and energy to be able to live life in your own terms and to be doing something that brings you joy and pleasure. And even when I sign the books, you know, I always say, I hope this book brings you joy. And I really mean that, because I find that when you can talk about what must happen to you, touch me here, touch me there, take their hand and make it grab where you want. When you've discovered self-play and you've discovered your body during self-discovery, it's also that much easier to tell your partner where you feel good. Now you waste time. When your partner wants to go to Cape Town. But if you get the proper directions, how go N12, split is in Bloemfontein, Kimberley, right? Split is in N3 Devon. choose the right one. It's that simple.
I think you're also saying something very fundamental, right? Is that also you don't have sex with the same type of people, right?
No.
So what worked for Tlaleng may not necessarily work for Alma. So rather than trying to implement what works for Tlaleng on Alma, maybe ask Tlaleng what makes you feel good, right?
Whisper to me and allow
And
me the chance to answer you and act
you
on
know,
it. Because listening, guys, it's not just me talking. You must do something about what I'm saying. And I have this discussion with men partners mostly, right? Cisgender men. Listen and do something about what you are hearing. No point women talking and you not listening. Being an active listener is important in the conversation, right? And remember, people are having different types of sex. So I don't assume, by the way, just because people are married, for example, they are only having vaginal and penis sex, or they are, again, the question I hate the most: how many people do you sleep with? Hi, man. Whose business is that? I'd rather ask you what type of sex you are having, then I can give you safer sex information. I can give you the health and wellness information dependent on your answer. Just for me to judge you, but it's not enhancing the consultation.
there's a somewhat juicy question from Beverly Dietzy, who's joining us from YouTube. Doc, about anal prep. Some of us are not bottoms and aspire to enjoy anal sex, have no idea. I've heard people talk about rolling sunlight and inserting it. Apparently, there's a pit. Is this true?
Woo, Bev, Dr. Bev, please, my global Dr. Bev. So definitely there is an anal prep kit. I mean, of course, with commercialization of sex, there'll always be someone selling something, right? But in this one, I really believe in buying commodities for anal prep. It comes with a little nozzle and, of course, spade, and the little solution that you can use. The sunlight one, we know it works because after Christmas, so it will work. But the sunlight is not good for your rectal lining. It's too harsh. You don't want to use substances that are caustic or toxic. You'd rather buy anal prep. And let me tell you, Dr. T, when I'm back in DISA from March, I will be stocking sex toys in a variety. And I've been shopping online and we are expecting delivery soon. And some of them include the anal prep kit. They include dildos. They include Kegel muscle exercise balls. They include lubricants and other exciting things.
Ke tla di try out to everyone and then ke tla le fa review. I wanna try out.
And now I just want to say, I'm available. I work from home. We have a very flexible schedule. So I'm going to test challenges. Tested.
Okay, I'll take you up. Plus Luna, maybe because I'm a writer. That's why I haven't done
Nazo.
You invite authors to your podcast, but it's right. I would invite you to
Mike, because why is she bringing our family business?
No, first of all,
writer, author. You know,
the receipt, it's the number of times we've tried to schedule it. Now I can tell the receipt.
I don't want to comment. I got to.
So it seems Katlego, it says, yes, I can test for you, please.
Hello.
So, I want to speak about this libido, right? I'm really interested about the idea of libidos, right? And like, how much is too much?
When you think it's too much, as the person who owns the libido, if you
it can just be fine, even if it's too much.
Lala, Bona. And remember, your libido doesn't necessarily always have to involve other people. The problem with high libido is when people start forcing their partners to partake in sexual acts they don't want to. Because, una le high libido. This is why I always like to just normalize erections for men for the sake of it's a muscle, it has blood vessels and nerves. At some point in the day, that muscle is going to do what muscles do and it's going to be erect. It does not mean that's a signal to put that erection into something or someone. Just have your erection and you're going to die. You ain't going to die. But for as long as you have libido and you can self-pleasure and self-play and you have a partner who can consent to however many times you want to have sex and how you want to have it, there's nothing wrong. But the problem is if it's now delaying you from going to work, you miss the briefings, the clients because you're busy sexy, you are missing deadlines, the quality of your work, then maybe there's a problem. Come and see me.
But is it like exercise and it releases endorphins, so you're more alert?
It's bigger than us.
Yasin, Popoto consulta too. This is not a
some more consulta, please. Some more consulta. This is open, please.
Privileges. Mara, this is too much. But in all honesty, for people who are listening, remember your libido will also change depending on where you are in your reproductive life, in your reproductive cycle. Near ovulation, a lot of women will get horny because it's your body's way of saying get pregnant because our uteruses and ovaries hate us. Every few weeks, we must just be getting pregnant. And then during that time, your libido can really like ramp up. And then it wanes down a little bit towards your menstruation. When you are pregnant, you can have very high libido than you are used to. It could be normal and not change, or it could also be like a little less. So we need to allow ourselves the space to be in touch and in tune with our bodies and then do what feels good. You don't always have to have a partner. Sex is not something all the time. Sometimes have sex with yourself, beloved. If libido is that wild, have sex with yourself. That's okay. Enjoy it.
I think that there was something interesting that I saw on Twitter today, just saying about libido, right? Because we're in the middle of a pandemic. People have lost their jobs. They lost loved ones. And there's like an effect that the pandemic has had on some people's libidos, right? But there's also an idea that at the intersection of our lives, I guess, in patriarchy, is that you cannot be like a woman and then choose to not have sex. So not want to have sex with your partner or say no, and that's the kind of advice that we give our young girls. We say, when your husband says it's go time, And I think that it's such an important conversation to have around libido, that our libidos may not always, you and your partner's libido may not always be ready to go at the same time. And this is why consent is so important, and this is why we need to talk about charisma. But maybe I'm not saying yes because I want to, I'm saying yes because there's a societal expectation on me to continuously provide sex. Sex must be done to me even when I don't want.
And that's why sex is political, right? Because even how women are supposed to enjoy sex is very much determined by patriarchy and those principles that further perpetuates the power imbalances within relationships. So the fact that you can't even negotiate the type of sex that you want as a woman, the fact that you can't even tell your lover, position, let's do this other position, you are then deemed to be seen as a slut. Where do you know that position from? You are too loose. All of those judgments are based on patriarchy and the fact that there are good men and good women and bad women, right? And as women, we fall into that trap of trying to have this hierarchy between us because of the proximity it will give you to patriarchy. And you forget it will devour you, it will eat you up alive, regardless of how proximal you are. But it does play itself out even in how we have sex. The scripted nature in which we have sex often undermines consent, but also undermines pleasure.
Sarah Hamid calls it compulsory heterosexuality and the script that it creates, right? That even though you want to try and step out of it, it's constantly reinforced. And how it's reinforced for queer people particularly is how every time, instead of someone asking you, how's your partner doing? They'll be like, hey, Taleng, how's your husband? Without actually ever knowing. So you need to technically come out and say, actually, I'm not married to a man, I'm married to a woman. So you constantly have this uncomfortable conversation about coming out, because the way heterosexuality as a script works is that you've just learned one way of having sex, and that's the only way that you're ever going to have sex.
And it takes away so much, you know, and that's why I think for me, sex is activism. You know, you don't always have to feel this way, but there are moments in time where I'm like, the fact that I'm having such good sex and the sex that I want to have is part of why we do the work that we do, right? And for me, sometimes it feels like activism. It feels like that orgasmic moment. It's like a big FU to patriarchy. You know, I always think of Mona when she does her videos, you know, and honestly, like that orgasmic moment, I'm just like, I'm gonna scream the hell out, because you know what? I'm that bad woman who dares to stand at the foot of patriarchy and say, and who were Uma, you're not gonna tell me, I'm not gonna live life on your terms. And so I'm projecting that onto people, but you don't have to feel that it's activism for you. But for me, there are moments where it feels like it. And I remember a friend of mine, I won't say from which country, in Africa, because of the intense homophobia there. But when she came to visit South Africa on a fellowship, the one a few years ago, you know, we went dancing in liquid blue with her. And it was just the most liberating experience that she's ever had, to be in a space that is safe with people, with people who just minding their own business, and she's having fun. And we stopped and said, this for you in your life, in the context of your life, this is revolutionary. You can go to a gay club and not be arrested. Do you understand that you are living this life? This is the future. This is why you are fighting in your country. This is the future. And so I know sometimes, you know, we like to make this activism as if it's but sometimes it really is that big of a deal. And it's the small things sometimes that remind you how big a deal this work is.
So there is a comment from Nbua on YouTube. I'm going to ask off the tangent conversation. Batung, what is the straight plus LGBTIQ plus people saying, got the men on the TV show, Umdeni and GBV? I will say, I don't know. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know what's happening.
I don't know what the show is. What is the show? Please tell us what the show is about in Bua, then maybe.
Yeah, and then we can engage this. So a comment from Facebook. I'm so glad you touched on this, because we need to understand that it's okay to self-pleasure even when you are in a relationship.
Especially when you are in a relationship. Oh my God.
Seo from on YouTube says, Doc, after after the anal features are fixed, can one enjoy anal sex, or is it over for them? Also, your thoughts on numbing creams for anal play.
So the numbing creams, unfortunately, because they numb the pain, and pain is there to give you a signal that something isn't quite right. So if you numb away that signal, you are going to get penetrated beyond what you can tolerate, right? Because remember, anal penetration is a graduated penetration. You don't go from no penetration to having a whole penis inside of you. It doesn't work that way. And I always tell people, oh, does it?
Oops.
or does it?
Tell us more.
I don't know. I don't know, y'all. I don't know.
But my advice is you advance 1 centimeter an hour. That allows the person who's receiving the penetration some comfort, right? You have to have lots and lots of lubricant. Like, if you think you have too much, it's probably not even enough. Put even more. And I like the silicone lubricants because they don't dry out as much as the water lubricants, but any lubricant is good. But always make sure, especially if you are using a condom, that you are using a lubricant that's compatible with the condom, right? So that you don't then affect the integrity and the efficacy of the condom. Anal fissures can be fixed. I remember at the Jane in general surgery, we used to do a lot of these surgeries, and you can still enjoy anal sex. But I think the important thing here again is to have communication with your partner about how far to advance, what type of strokes they must be doing. And if something feels uncomfortable, you have to say. Sometimes it's a matter of changing position, having a pillow underneath your abdomen, like your lower abdomen, right? I don't know why you're laughing, sir, but ma'am.
I'm laughing at this comment. So Umulima on on YouTube was like, "Kochi, I also ooped." You know, like, I don't know. You know, I don't know. So that's how I'm laughing.
Okay, and I'll be honest, my threshold is like minus something, so only very brief. But again, remember when you incorporate sex toys that have a vibration on it, right? And you do the foreplay with that type of a toy, you kind of help your anal sphincter relax. And when your anal sphincter is relaxed, you are able to then perceive whether it's a sex toy or it's a real life penis much more. But between the lubricant and doing enough foreplay, booty rubs work really well, relaxing your anal muscle, have a warm bath. And you have to trust the person who's doing this with you. You know, a lot of people would be like,
and sometimes
yes, exactly. Unyofe. Yes, he's from there. You know, and sometimes people are like, but my partner doesn't want to try it. Well, it's maybe because they know who unja. You don't listen. You are unkind, and you are just like a horrible person in general. And I also wouldn't trust some person with my anal area. Hell no. So often when people come and be like, oh, she doesn't want to try anal, I'm like, she's not the problem. Trust me, she's not the problem. So yeah, and then take your time. And you don't, Chloe, you want to say something?
No, I'm saying it's really important what you're saying, right? Often people who have vaginal sex think that the anus or anal sex is the same as vaginal sex, right? So they want to sort of rim it in the way that they would have rimmed into a vagina. And you just want to be like, babes, that is not this party here. That is not this party here. So I'm just saying, like,
grocery list we are shopping. Because how can you know no.
So Zanila on YouTube says, my guy wants to get a vibrator underwear. I don't know the correct terminology. I'm also keen on trying it out, but he wants me to wear it in public. Mara, what if I squirt in public?
Then you'll just be like, oops, someone spilled water, and keep it moving. But what Zanette is talking about, so there's different makes of these vibrators toys, right? And usually it's for couple play. So the one partner will insert it in whatever orifice they feel comfortable with. And the other partner is able to control the vibrator using their phone or the actual remote. And they are so advanced now that even when you are traveling overseas, you can download an app and actually control I give it phonics because I can't make it global trotter, but I'm just saying there's an
okay, well, not global trotter. Review, I get it.
Yes.
So some of them are called WeVibe. Zanele, if you Google WeVibe, you will get that, or couple, sex toys that are meant for couples. And again, if you really, really, really want to have a chat, come through to DISA. I'll take you through what's available, what's there. We'll have a look online and see what you like. And if you squirt in public, true as God, like Karen. Karen, when anything happens in public, she says, oops, please call somebody. Now, if you squirt, just call somebody. Just say, there's water spilling here, and just keep it moving.
So, Professor, before we sign out, of the conversations or of the questions and the comments, which have been the juicy conversations for the people that sorry, there's another question here from Kansani on YouTube. Says, hi, cheeky natives and Professor. Please excuse my ignorance. Do women get pleasure from anal sex?
Yes.
And I suppose.
Yes.
Okay.
I suppose.
No, I wanted to say, just to put a caveat, I believe that Kansani is speaking specifically about cis women in this regard.
Absolutely. And the answer is yes. Because remember, your pelvic area, your pelvic floor, it has muscles, it has blood vessels, it has nerves, it has ligaments, right? And everyone has those nerves. So the same way that the anal sphincter has to relax when you are having anal sex, and you are not a cis, gender woman, it's the same way that you would need to prepare for anal play. And one of my favorite discussions ever is to remove the idea of anal play as gay sex. Anal sex is not gay sex. Anal sex is for anyone who finds pleasure in there. And they are, yes, Babon's a bestseller. More than 10,000 sold. Yes.
It's inside here. Anal play inside. Get your copy, and then you will hear all about anal play.
I do, ne? I give the people tips of how
Yes,
to go about.
You do indeed.
Yes,
Yvette has asked a question privately via me. She's asking, what is it to squirt?
To squirt. So I also write about squirting in here. It's one of the most important things that people ask, even when you're on radio. That question always comes up. So now, so think about, you are having sex and you are building up, right? The energy, you are building up, the tension, humunati, and then you get the orgasm and the climax, right? If you are a person with a penis, that climax often is accompanied by expulsion of fluid from the penis, and that is the semen, right? The ejaculation. If you are someone with a uterus and a vagina, that orgasm can also be accompanied by a squirting of fluid. That fluid is not urine, but it's coming from the glands that are in the vagina. The same glands every day. We leave your glands alone. Stop douching. Stop inserting things in your vagina. You are upsetting the environment in your vagina. This is part of the things that the glands in your vagina can squirt fluid. The same way that they lubricate your vagina during foreplay and arousal, those same glands are able to then squirt out this liquid. Some people experience it once in their lives. Some people never experience it. And some people squirt all the time. So much that they have to change their sheets, after they've had sex. So, oh, okay.
Wait, I'm curious. I want to make someone squirt. So interested.
I get how bad.
Offline, Chomi. Offline. I get enough ratings at Facebook.
And Nikki Professor herself. So between the two of us.
Offline. How come right?
And remember, your gender identity has got nothing to do with the type of sex you enjoy. I'll have you know. So
speak on it.
Me as we speak.
But I get
how bad?
Choki is not loyal.
I'm a person. One by one. So before we go, which two questions, let's say 3 things, stood out for you tonight? That, someone asked something and then you're like, oh, okay, I like it. So that we can choose these people and tell them that they must contact us for us to sign the book.
Well, now I know everyone, and I know a lot of people. So it feels like I'm cheating if I have to choose.
No, but you know it's your party, so you can choose.
It's your party. You are the captain of the ship.
So let's start with the shirt. The shirt. Who do you think should get the shirt?
Can I also enter for the shirt?
So I think Sister CRB must have the shirt. The one who was talking about how I've spoken about abortions and normalized them for her daughters. They know everything they need to know. I really like that one a lot because it's everything I do. And so she's a professor because she has all the information.
So Mushishi, can you please send us a personal message on Facebook with your address and your telephone number and your size for the t-shirt, and we will ensure that you come it comes to you and you are a professor.
Kuba we can a night shift. While go spetleleng sela, mone re bereka teng.
Okay, and so the two books, which questions or comments stood out for you?
So I really like the anal prep question, and I like it because it does that other work of me trying to demystify anal sex as gay sex, and I like that Dr. Beverly asked it. And I think she deserves a signed copy of the book.
Okay. So, Dr. Bev, can you please send us your delivery address and telephone number? You can contact us either on Facebook or on Twitter, or you have my number, so you can text me personally your address so that we can organize a signed copy for you.
So the books are ready to be delivered, as you can see. It's just for me to sign them. And the t-shirt is also ready to be delivered. It's just for us to get the right addresses.
Sabaweli.
Okay, Elma, you will get a t-shirt. Thank you very much. Tell us your size.
Wow, when you are inside, it will be an inside job.
But can please not stop me from speaking? We've been speaking about how women must voice out their desires. Now I desire a t-shirt. And I need a now.
Usays man, kitlo sendel.
Medium.
Yeah. Usays yaka, kitlo sendel.
In many ways, your size, babes.
And then the next one.
The next one, it's probably the last one. Was it the last one? In a worka in Hana,
so the last one was the last question was about do cis women get pleasure from anal sex?
Yes.
Okay. So Kansani, can you please contact us to send us your delivery address and your telephone number so that we can send you a signed copy of Dr. T's book?
What you did not do is tell me how cute I am. Damn.
It's a game.
Yeah, but you know what? We can't congratulate a fish for swimming, so you have to look cute.
And the respect I have shown the cheeky natives.
No, honestly, again. We want to Lucy with cake.
I have these gorgeous red roses, Dr. T. Bali. Oh, bonang cupcakes, guys. Oh, bonang. Such nice Dr. T cupcakes with the bestseller. One your fair.
For personal.
Yeah, and just beautiful stuff. But like, thank you, Galilava. You know how much I love you guys. But as a writer, I look forward to being on a podcast someday. When I'm an author, but now I'm a writer, so it's okay. I understand.
Wait again, when people take your home business to the streets, this is how it looks.
So I'm communicating. God, is it not just the three of us?
No, it's not just the three of us. There's the whole world watching us right now.
Oh, well, oops.
So it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. T, for hanging out with us to celebrate your best-selling book. And just for us to say that because we love readers and we respect readers, The Cheeky Merchant has this book available for $250. And when you get it from The Cheeky Merchant, it will be personally signed by the professor herself. And then it will also be personally wrapped by the professor herself. And we will deliver to your door.
Look at these gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous boxes that I got today. So gorgeous.
So we are ready to do that. So please support Dr. T to continue to be a bestseller, and also buy the book for your friend, buy the book for your office, buy the book for a neighbor. Just buy.
Buy the book for everybody, for your mama and your mama's friends, everybody.
I love you guys.
Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us and for making our lives a little bit more juicy.
You're
Um,
welcome.
We
Yeah,
we we are lubricated.
Man.
We are lubricated enough to go play, to go self-pleasure.
Self-pleasure
with other people, Babe just came home, so now I'm ready to wrap up the conversation.
Dedicate, please. You got dedication. That talk.
Yes,
And Dr. T, we wish you all the best for your term as the UN Special Rapporteur, and we wish you all the best for your return to practice. We hope that you will have too many patients that you yourself are saying, you know what, guys, calm down, like calm down. Let me get a busy.
For that.
And also, we wish you all the best for your paperback edition of Dr. T, Sexual Health and Pleasure. And we hope that you will continue to sell even more books. But more importantly, we hope that this book will be curriculum in medical school when we think about sexual and reproductive health, because it's very important for us to, get the information that we get so that we are able to be better doctors to our patients. But once again, from the Cheeky Natives, we love you, love you, love you, love you. And to everyone who's been joining us from the various platforms, thank you so much for staying with us on this Thursday evening. We hope that you will share your experiences about how wonderful this conversation has been. We've loved it. We hope you have. And continue to support the Cheeky Natives. Follow us at Cheeky Natives on all social medias. And also, if you're not following the professor, follow her at Dr. T on all social media platforms. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.